If you're like me, getting out the door to go somewhere can sometimes come with a bundle of chaos that you didn't expect. Oh, I forgot to put on hairspray, or I forgot to get my shoes, or where is my wallet? That one happens to me all the time. Then you actually get on the road and you're about a mile away from the restaurant and you find out the GPS was wrong the whole time. You put in the other Cracker Barrel and not the Cracker Barrel that was nice and close to where you live. And now you're 20 minutes removed from where you wanted to be. And that's what we all do in our professional lives too. It's easy to get distracted and to chase shiny new objects and to find things along the way and forget where you actually want to go. It's like the restaurant is changing right before your eyes. And today I want to show you how to overcome those distractions and how to beat shiny object syndrome by setting goals. So today I have a little presentation for you, how to set goals when you are easily distracted by new projects and shiny things. Let's hop in. So if you think about the sources of distractions, there's a ton of them, right? There's the shiny object syndrome, things you chase, unclear priorities, a lack of a structured plan, no milestones, we have nothing we can measure, there's no alignment, there's no long-term vision, nobody's really telling us where to go, we're just kind of making it up as we get along. Well, we can bucket all of those distractions into 3 different categories. 1, direction, 2, commitment, and 3, motivation. Let's talk about each of those. So with direction, this is priorities, planning, vision, success, and milestones. This is when, there's no structured plan. There's no clear idea of where we want to go. This is when the GPS is a little fried. It's a little scattered. It's maybe not pointed at any specific thing. It's on, you open the app, but you didn't put a direction of where you want to go in it. And this is a source of distraction because with no one saying this is where we want to go, this is no direction, we're left to kind of figure things out on our own. And that can lead to things where you just really aren't sure what to do. The second category is commitment. This is where we're bad with managing our own time, or we have too many things going on, or we're really bad at saying no. We can't commit to any one thing. And so we end up committing to a lot of things and kind of doing all of those things poorly. And the third one is motivation. I just don't even feel like doing it. And this can come from we're bored, maybe there's not enough challenge, or the outcomes of what we're trying to do is not clear. We don't really know where the finish line is. It's hard to stay motivated when you're just running endlessly, going after nothing. And when there's no alignment between your personal goals and what the organization wants, or there's a misalignment even, you want something and you don't agree with where the organization going, or the organization isn't making clear about where they want to go, that misalignment can really crush motivation. It's a cultural thing at that point. And then, with no deadline pressure, like no real deadline, what are you motivated to get it done for? Why are you going to push hard this week when really this thing doesn't have an actual deadline? There's nothing really to go after. So think about those distractions. One of those is going to resonate more with you than another. The antidote to all of those distractions is to build strong goals. And today I want to walk you through 4 different types of goals that I use in my business, but I think that everybody should have to think about the way that they structure their team, their organization, themselves, and their projects. Let's hop in. The goals move from really high level down to extremely tactical. They're almost not goals at that point, but we'll cover them anyways. And that's, the annual goals, big planning. Every year we get together and we think about what do we want to do, who are we, etc. Quarterly is kind of that check-in point throughout the year where we figure out, all right, so we want to go here for the whole year, but this next 90 days, what does that look like? Initiatives are separate from a timeline. They're more related to something specific that you're going on, some sort of campaign, some sort of project. And then weekly is the reason you get out of bed. This is what we're doing this week. This is as a team, we're going to crush it. How do we know we had a good week? How do we know we had a bad week? Weekly goals are the key there. So for annual goals, this answers the question, why do we exist? This is the big ideas that covers 90% of the year. And this is where we get a lot of alignment. As an organization, this is what we stand for. These are our priorities. And they're big and hairy and audacious, but they help answer questions. They help us make decisions as a team, as a leadership team, as a sub-team doing some sort of operational work. It tells us what is important. This is the anchor. This guides our decision making. And my recommendation for an annual goal or a set of annual goals are OKRs, which is objective and key results. Always start with the mission and vision. This is who we are, what we stand for. These are our values. This is our attributes, where we are in the marketplace, who we serve, etc. All of that stuff. is the foundation to anything you're doing, right? Because your goals are an extension of your brand, of your personality, of your mission. The next thing to do is identify any categories that you want to drive results, or rather, let me say it a different way, any categories where there are distractions that you want to avoid. Where do we want to be very clear? This can be things from sales, marketing, development, product, or it can be personal if it's you setting annual goals for yourself or your team. This could be like our health. This could be our culture. You find the categories that work for you. The next thing to do is within those categories, select 1 to 3 objectives. Now, this isn't an OKR building video today. This isn't a lesson on how to build OKRs. So the objectives here speak to the framework of OKRs, which you can learn about in other places. For each of those objectives, we'll kind of identify what are the data points that we're going to move, what are the KPIs, and then for within those objectives, within those KPIs, what are the targets? How do we want to move that data point? And we take this all, we kind of bundle it up, and throughout the year, at every single point that we have, we're going to bring those OKRs into the discussion, both later when we plan our quarterly goals, but also, as a team, we need to remind ourselves constantly, this is what we're doing. That's the evangelization part. So here's an example. You might say, as an objective for the year, we want to elevate our position as the premier engineering and architecture firm for luxury hospitality projects. It's pretty specific, but it's a what, right? It doesn't tell you how to do it, just a what. That's the objective. The key results. We want to improve our project value 20% year over year. We want to win 2 industry awards for innovative designs, and we want to win 3 new high-profile luxury hotel chain projects. The key with key results is that they're measurable targets. So we can look at this at the end of the year and say, yes, we did this, or no, we didn't. This also guides us and stops us from being distracted by changing targets. This is where we're going as a company. We want to elevate our position. That's who we are. And this is how we're going to do it. So the next one is quarterly goals. This answers what is our priority. Every 90 days, it's important that we kind of check in with things and reset these goals. This will tell us something we can look back on and reflect on and use as a tool for planning effectively. So these are more tactical milestones that kind of fit into the larger vision of the company. They're pit stops, right? They let us focus. Like this 90 days, this is our mission. We're going hard on this one thing. And for this format, I would recommend using OKRs that tie into those, or just simple outcomes. We want to be X, we want to have X, we want to do Y by the end of the year. The process is pretty similar, but there's 2 processes to look at with quarterly goals. One is how are we supporting the big annual OKR that we have. That's where we'll pick an OKR, we'll pick a key result or an objective from that, and we'll design a milestone OKR that ties into and supports that one thing. And we'll repeat this process for any annual OKRs that we want to focus on for this 90 days. Now, that's going to be context dependent on your team, on your focus, on your skill set, etc. Right? A marketing team isn't necessarily going to be working on product development, although they should be talking. Process number 2 is important because while it's good to support the annual goals, that does shoehorn our decision making as teams and the way that we plan goals as a team. And it can kind of squash innovation from below if everything comes from the top. So this second process here is designed to help your team kind of organically build those goals up that help the organization move and innovate. So this is where you kind of think of a business category that's probably selected for you depending on your team. You'll define an intermediate objective, pick the data. This is similar to the annual goals. Pick an outcome, pick a deadline within the 90 days, and then make sure you have an owner, right? Someone needs to be accountable for this. Now, accountability doesn't mean that they're responsible for carrying out everything that goes along with it, but it does mean that they are kind of the point person for the whole company or for the team around how is this goal going, and they are the ones that kind of champion, evangelize, and make sure that we're making progress on these things as the quarter progresses. Let's look at an example. So if we were to take our annual OKR, we're going to tie into that one. We might build an objective that ties a little bit into that innovative key result there, the Win 2 Industry Awards. So we might say our objective for this 90 days is to develop award-worthy innovative design solutions for luxury hospitality projects. And the key results there all work towards the benefit of doing that. And they're very measurable and they have a deadline, whether it's within the mid-quarter, like the third one there, or just this is what we want to do in this 90 days. These are things we can look back and objectively say, yes, we did it, or no, we didn't. The third kind is what I'm calling initiative goals. These are short-term, very specific project goals, essentially. This is like related to an effort of some kind, not necessarily a timeline or, a calendar year of the business, but rather we have a project going on. These are the goals for that project, whether it's internal or external. And this is how we define success. These are important because we need a finish line. We can't win a race with no end. We need a finish line. So whether the project is for a client or whether the project is some sort of internal thing, it's important to relate to that quantitatively. And you can do that with OKRs, but you can do this with more just outcomes that we're trying to go. So the process there is, let's start with the end in mind. What is the end state? If it was a client, what does the client want out of this project? All right, that's the future. If we work backwards, what's the data that supports that outcome? And how can we design an outcome for that result? What I mean is, like, you don't want to say, yes, we'll design a 90-page plan set, but rather you want to say, we're going to help our client improve their bottom line in some case, like whether that's hotel reservations or some sort of feature in a magazine, whatever it is for the client that's important to them. We want the outcome to be there, not the activity that we put into it. So here's an example. If we were doing a luxury hotel client for a company named Acme, we might say, hey, we want to deliver a fully approved design for your flagship hotel within 6 months. There's our timeline, incorporating 3 innovative sustainable features that ties into who we are as a company while staying within the $10 million design budget. If anybody has a $10 million budget that they want to hook me up with, I'd be happy to do whatever you want. And the last kind is weekly goals. This is about gamifying your week. This is about saying you had a good week, because even if we have a great 90-day OKR, it's kind of hard to see where you are in the big picture every week as a team when, the finish line is actually really far away, especially at the beginning of the quarter. So this is like fast-moving little micro goals that we'll set throughout the week, or we'll establish at the beginning of the week, or a stand-up, or every day, whatever it is, to help us crush these short-term, really intermediate deliverables that we do. And this is kind of an unofficial thing. In my company, we use a whiteboard. Like, we'll literally just kind of write, what are the big things that we're going to do this week? What are the important outcomes? And then we'll establish, who's in charge of what, so that they can focus on that. Is it an entire team thing? Is it, Dave? Who's going to work on this? And we'll kind of informally document these. So they aren't necessarily the big measurables, but they are kind of how are we moving through the week? Are we going to define what we expect this week to look like? For example, we might up on our whiteboard just say, hey, this week we're going to publish 2 social media videos. We're going to add 10 clients to the pipeline. We want to identify 4 out-of-state RFPs, because we're trying to expand a little bit. And we may say that we want to deliver a preliminary model to Acme, our luxury hotel client from earlier. At the end of the day, goals are a tool. Goals are the destination on the GPS. You might take a few different routes to get there, but it's important to know where there is. If you're chasing a target, you're never going to reach it. You just don't know where you're going to land, and you're kind of moving. And the reason that matters is because it can be very distracting. All those buckets of distractions can stop you from achieving your goals. Goals should be a bit non-negotiable, but the way you get there, the tactics, those can all change. And in order to make those tactics meaningful, it's important to have a clear outcome, clear destination where you want to go. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. I hope some of that was helpful, useful, or insightful. If you are interested in watching how I plan my weekly business, check out the video below or above or whatever platform you're watching this on. Anyways, I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.